How were your physical examination results? So. What about yours? Let's not even talk about it. My body forging results were still not enough to pass. What do I do? Within the classroom, many voices could be heard. Chen Heng looked around and saw many familiar faces. Listening to what they were saying, his mouth twitched as he began to doubt reality. He had come to this alternate reality for more than half a month, but he still was not used to it. The world has changed. Chen Heng shook his head and took out a book from his desk tray. This book was different from the one he was familiar with. It was a very, very thick book. The book's cover looked quite simple, and there were a few big words written on it. Body Forging Basics. Following this book, Chen Heng took out a few more books from within his desk tray. Body Forging Theory, Martial Arts History, The Reason for Special Abilities. There was a pile of books in front of him. In Chen Heng's previous world, he would have read them as fiction novels. Chen Heng could not help but sigh looking at them. Honestly speaking, he had been quite excited when he had first come to this alternate world. In one's life, who did not have any regrets? Returning to when he had been in high school, time was perfect. He had many regrets and now had the chance to make up for all of them. Back then, he had been incredibly excited and filled with ambition. He had wanted to do great things in this world, but reality had given him a heavy blow. The world had changed. He had gone to an alternate reality, and time had rewound for him. He remembered all of the people around him from his memories. His relatives, friends, and other people he was familiar with were still there, and there was nothing different about them. It was just that the world had changed. This was a martial arts world. In this world, martial arts were incredibly real. There were many incredibly famous martial arts grandmasters, and all of them had incredible power. This was something that his old world did not have. Not only this world's ancient history was filled with martial arts grandmasters. Most big events were connected to these grandmasters. Even for a normal student like Chen Heng, apart from culture subjects, he also had martial arts classes. This was a big difference to Chen Heng's world in the past. He did not know why these changes had happened. Thinking about the various aspects of this world, Chen Heng felt like sighing for some reason. Fortunately, his start had been quite good. In his old world, his results in high school had been pretty good. Even though he was not one of the best students, he was in the top 10 in his class. In this world, not only were his culture subjects quite high, but his martial arts subjects were also good. His scores in various subjects were exemplary, and he was one of the top students of this high school. This was something that made him feel better. However, this was not enough. This world's rules are pretty similar to my old world's rules. The university entrance exam is also very important. However, compared to my old world, this world's university entrance exam not only tests culture subjects but also martial arts subjects. Chen Heng sat in front of his desk and thought by himself, the culture subjects aren't a problem. There's still half a year, and if I work hard to study them, I should be able to reach my goal. But the martial arts subjects, he frowned. Even though in his past life in his old world he had already graduated and entered society, he still had his many years of experience. Adding on this world's memories, as long as he worked hard, it would be no problem for him to reach his goals in the culture subjects. However, he did not know what to do for the martial arts subjects. Even though one's martial arts subject scores being bad did not affect one entering university, having good results in martial arts subjects gave many advantages. If possible, Chen Heng wanted to be a master of both pen and sword so that he could set a good foundation for his future and have a good start. I hope this thing can help me. Chen Heng lightly sighed and looked around. With a thought from him, a row of letters and numbers appeared in front of him. Current points, 19, the same number of days as I've been in this world. Looking at these numbers, a thought appeared in Chen Heng's mind. These numbers had been with him since he had come to this world. He had been in this world for over half a month, but he still did not know what use it had. He only knew that as time passed, the number would increase. However, he still did not know what it could be used for. Still sitting at his desk, he raised his head and looked at the lectern at the front. There was a clock hanging on the lectern, and the time it displayed was nearly 12 p.m. He stared at the clock, silently watching time continuously pass. Ding! A clear sound rang out. Outside, a bell rang. Class is over. Around him, the students cheered and the classroom became lively. However, Chen Heng did not pay any mind to this. He continued to stare ahead. As he stared, the number in front of his eyes began to change. Current points, 20. The updated number floated in front of his eyes. It was now 20. Nothing else. Looking at this number, Chen Heng felt a bit confused. He had always been quite curious about this thing he had. Before, he had always felt that when his points reached 20, something would happen. Was that a mistaken feeling? He felt quite confused and could not help but feel a bit disappointed. At that moment, an interface appeared before his eyes. At the same time, a hazy feeling appeared. Chen Heng felt as if he had put on blurred glasses, and an uncomfortable feeling came from ahead. Chen Heng could not help but shake his head before looking ahead again. At that moment, there was a new change. The conditions have been fulfilled. Would you like to begin the simulation? A new line of words appeared before his eyes. Simulation? Looking at these words, Chen Heng felt quite surprised. As he looked on, the scene before his eyes quickly changed. The interface in front of him changed and a game-like interface appeared. There were rows of dots of light on it, but only the first was shining and blinking with light. What is this? Looking at this interface, Chen Heng zoned out for a few moments before looking around. He instinctively looked down at that first shining dot of light. As his gaze landed on the dot of light, some more words appeared. Sorcerer World. Entry requirements, 20 points. Would you like to begin the simulation? No. Chen Heng instinctively refused. He was still at school, and it would not be convenient for him to try out whatever this was. He would go home and try it out in a safe environment. There was no need to be in a rush. Chen Heng, coming to a realization, thought to himself, so the entry requirement is 20 points. No wonder it only activated today. As for that simulation, he could make a guess about it, but he was unable to confirm it yet. No matter what kind of guesses he came up with, he would only be sure after trying it out himself. Thinking he got up and looked around. In that short amount of time, the surrounding students had already left. Only a few people still sat at their desks, either reading books or chatting. Chen Heng packed his things and walked home. His home was not too far from school, and even if he walked, it only took around 10 minutes. Soon, an old neighborhood could be seen. Chen Heng walked into it with great familiarity and arrived at his home. Your home. After getting home, a voice came out from the kitchen. In the kitchen was a middle-aged woman around 40 years old wearing an apron. After hearing the door open, she looked back and saw Chen Heng. How were things today? Not too bad. The classes aren't too hard. Chen Heng nodded and looked at the living room as he asked, "Where's Big Sis?" "Huh? I don't know. She probably went somewhere to fool around." Wang Li shook her head before saying, "Get ready to eat." Chen Heng nodded and did not say much. He silently put his bag down and sat at the table. Even though he had returned home, he was unable to calm down his emotions. He thought about it and took out a book and read by himself, using this time to calm himself down. After a while, the sound of footsteps could be heard outside, and someone walked in. It was a girl who was relatively tall and had good looks. It was just that she had heavy makeup on and wore high heels. "Where the hell did you go after skipping school?" Wang Li could not help but ask as he observed her appearance. "None of your business." Chen Jing put down her bag and said, "Just do your part and cook lunch." "You, AI." Wang Li stood there, and even though she looked angry, in the end, she did not say anything. Chen Heng looked up and looked at his big sister. Both parents of this family had been divorced before, and Chen Heng was Wang Li's son. He had changed his surname after his mother had married his stepfather. As for Chen Jing, she was Chen Heng's stepsister, and there was no blood relation between them. Compared to Chen Heng, who obediently went to school, Chen Jing seemed like a delinquent. She often skipped school and spent time with all kinds of people. From what Chen Heng remembered, she would run away from home for a while in 2 years. Of course, in this world, he had no idea how things would turn out. "How are things at school?" Chen Jing took out a bottle of Coca-Cola from the fridge and sat next to Chen Heng as she looked at him and smiled. "Not too bad. I did pretty well in these exams. I was 5th in the class." Chen Heng said as he put down his book. What about your martial arts subjects? Chen Jing asked, seeming deeply concerned. Only top 20, Chen Heng thought before replying. That's not bad either. Chen Jing nodded before walking to the side and drinking the Coca-Cola in one breath. After lunch, Chen Heng and Chen Jing chatted for a bit before walking back to their own rooms. After walking into his room, Chen Heng thought about it and changed his clothes before lying on his bed. Would you like to begin the simulation? Before his eyes, the familiar letters and numbers once again appeared. Looking at these words, Chen Heng felt a strange sense of nervousness. He deeply breathed in and accepted, yes. As he made this choice, he noticed that his points quickly dropped to 0. The points he had accumulated over 20 days directly returned to 0. Following this, the interface before him went through changes. Please choose your character. A line of words appeared before his eyes. Chen Heng looked at the interface, which now had many more options. They floated in front of his eyes, waiting for him to make a decision. The story is about to begin. You are projected into an unfamiliar world and will become part of an unfamiliar family. Sorcerer family. You are born into a sorcerer family. Both of your parents are sorcerers, or one of them is a sorcerer. You are born into a sorcerer family and have good resources. Compared to ordinary mortals, your starting point is above what their maximum potential is. Potential. Your body flows with noble blood, giving you superior advantages compared to most people. Whether it is your body or mind, you are naturally much stronger than ordinary people. Points to exchange, 3,000 to 3 million. Noble family. You are born into a noble family. Both of your parents are nobles or at least one of them is. You are born into a noble family and have good resources. Compared to ordinary mortals, your starting point is above what their maximum potential is. Potential. Your body flows with noble blood, giving you superior advantages compared to most people. Whether it is your body or mind, you are naturally much stronger than ordinary people. Points to exchange, 1,000 to 300,000. Ordinary family. You are born into an ordinary family. Your parents are both ordinary people. Compared to the noble families, your family situation is ordinary. Your family may be a bit poorer or richer compared to others, but it will still be ordinary. Everything about you will be plain and unremarkable. Points to exchange, 0 to 1,000. Outlander family, elf. You are born into an outlander family and will be an elf. Information appeared before Chen Heng's eyes, and only he could see them. There were at least thousands of lines. These thousands of lines contained all kinds of options. There were noble sorcerers, as well as lowly kobolds. Anything that one could imagine was included. So I get to choose my identity. Chen Heng looked through the options seriously. Of the identities that Chen Heng was looking at, most required very few points. For example, the kobolds or ordinary families did not even require any points to choose. However, some options, such as sorcerer family, cost a ridiculously high number of points. Even the lowest option required an astronomical number of points. Looking at these options, Chen Heng could roughly understand their use. The identity he chose would be the identity he would take after going to the simulation. As for the difference in points required within each option, that would determine the quality of each option. After all, even for people who had the same type of family or social status, there could be massive differences. A family with $1 million in assets and a family with hundreds of millions of dollars in assets could both be called millionaires, but were they the same? As such, the difference between people was often bigger than the difference between humans and dogs. This was the difference within the options. Chen Heng guessed that after choosing an option, he would choose how many points to spend. The more points that he spent, the better the identity would be. That was most likely how it worked. However, right now, Chen Heng did not have much of a choice. He did not have a single point on him, so he naturally could not do much. Right now, he could only choose the identities that did not require points. As such, he glanced over the options and looked at the ordinary family option. Confirm. After selecting it, the options all disappeared, and a line of words appeared. Please select the talents you would like to add. Following this, more options appeared before Chen Heng's eyes. Sorcerer talent. You have the talent to become a sorcerer. This means you have the aptitude to become a sorcerer. Points to exchange, 1,000 to 100,000. Knight talent. You have the talent to become a knight. This determines whether or not you can have life energy, and it gives you the aptitude to become a knight. Points to exchange. 100 to 10,000. Memory talent. You have an extraordinary memory that surpasses that of ordinary peoples. Points to exchange. 10 to 1,000. Body talent. You have an extraordinary constitution. Your body will be strong from a young age and surpasses ordinary people's. Points to exchange. 10 to 100. Comprehension talent. You have extraordinary comprehension abilities. You will be proficient at studying from a young age and have great comprehension abilities towards various things. Points to exchange. 10 to 10,000. All kinds of options once again appeared before Chen Heng. They all look pretty good. What a pity. Chen Heng looked at the prices and his mouth twitched. He did not hesitate to skip these options. Following this, the options disappeared and a new choice appeared. Please select your operation time. This time, the choice was time. The default age seemed to be 20 years old. Chen Heng looked at the option. It seemed that he could control the time. The earlier it was, the more points were required. From 20 years old, every year prior required 10 points. In that case, if I want to start from a baby, I need to invest 200 points. Chen Heng thought to himself and came to this conclusion. However, given his circumstances, there was not much to consider, so he chose the starting age of 20 years old. After all, right now, he did not have anything. After selecting his age, the interface disappeared. Rays of golden light appeared before his eyes, filling his vision. Chen Heng raised his head and looked ahead. He just so happened to see a golden door seem to open in front of him, sucking him in. Darkness, chaos. A hazy feeling came from above. Chen Heng woke up and gradually came to consciousness. When he became fully awake, he found that the place he was at had changed. In front of him was a dim forest. There were large trees all around him, and they seemed to have existed for a long time. He had a bow in his hands and seemed to be aiming into the distance. Looking at the bow in his hands, he felt stunned. In the previous moment, he had been in his warm room. In the blink of an eye, he was standing in an unfamiliar forest. Following this, large amounts of memories started to appear in his mind. Suolo, 20 years old, an ordinary hunter in the Salo region. For Chen Heng, there was a barrier between these memories and his own memories, but it was a bit hazy. Is this what the simulation is like? Chen Heng held his head and only recovered after a few moments. After getting used to his current identity, he looked around. In front of him, the points interface was still there. Now, it had a few more words, showing that he was in a simulation. Right now, he was within a simulation. However, as long as he wanted to, he could exit from the simulation at any time and return to his own world. At the same time, no matter how much time passed in the simulation, in the real world, only a moment would have passed. After understanding these things, Chen Heng felt much more at ease and confident. What he had been the most afraid of was discovering that his body had died of hunger after going back. Since this kind of thing would not happen, there was naturally nothing for him to be afraid of. Standing there, Chen Heng thought to himself. He was a hunter, and the region he was in was called Salo. He was born into a hunter family. His father was an outstanding hunter, but he was getting old and did not have much strength. Suolo was also an excellent hunter. Even though he was not very old, in his generation, he was quite famous. After confirming his identity, Chen Heng left this place. He followed the path in his memories and returned home. He began to go about his life according to what his memories were like. He was just like the Suolo in the past, living in this area. There was not much difference in what he did and what Suolo would do. The main difference was that compared to the Suolo of the past, when there was no one around, he would do some strange movements, continuously training his body. These strange movements had a name in Chen Heng's word, which was body forging technique, or the foundational body forging technique. Time gradually passed, and before Chen Heng had realized it, 5 years had gone by. Over the 5 years, Chen Heng's fame in the region became greater and greater, and he soon became known by many people. Most people knew that he was the most famous hunter in the region and that he had great skills. Of course, part of this was because of the body forging technique. In the real world, Even though the body forging technique was only a basic martial art, it was a bona fide body forging technique. For those who had not done much training before, this kind of body forging technique had great effects. The reason why Chen Heng was able to become an excellent hunter these past 5 years was because of the body forging technique. Over the 5 years, he had barely been able to complete a bit more than half of the body forging technique. Even according to the standards in the real world, it was quite impressive. At the very least, in Chen Heng's class, he would definitely be number one. Of course, this was just something accomplished consistently over time. It was not anything incredible in and of itself. After all, with his experience and given that he had 5 years, not reaching such a level would be strange. Even so, he was still far away from completing the body forging technique. Chen Heng felt that if he wanted to complete it, it would take him at least another 3 or 4 years. I wonder how those monsters who completed body forging before turning 18 did it. After confirming his progress, Chen Heng felt quite speechless. He could only confirm that the difference between people was sometimes indeed bigger than the difference between humans and dogs. After calculating the time, this year was the 5th year that Chen Heng had been in this simulation. In this year, the originally peaceful mountain village started to go through some changes. "Are you the most famous hunter here?" A tall young man stood before Chen Heng and looked at him. Based on his gaze, he seemed to be examining him. "Hello, sir." Chen Heng's expression was very calm. Looking at the young man's attire, a respectful look appeared on his face as he said, "How can I help you?" This young man was wearing a high-quality red robe and had an ornate short sword on his waist. In this region, only nobles could wear red, and that ornate short sword was not something that ordinary families could have. Evidently, this fellow was both rich and high class. It was extremely likely that he was a noble. "My people and I want to catch a white deer on this mountain." The young man was evidently quite pleased towards Chen Heng's tactfulness and respectfulness and said, "As a reward, I will give you a large sum of money." Hearing this, Chen Heng's eyes lit up. "I would be honored to help you, sir," he said softly as he looked at this young man with a respectful gaze. Following this, he led the young man and his 2 attendants into the mountain. As they walked, Chen Heng considered the possibility of taking down the young man. Beforehand, he had chatted with the young man, and it seemed that the young man did not have much wariness towards him, allowing him to gain some information. The young man was called Surundo, and he was the son of a knight in this region. The reason why he came here was because he wanted to find a special gift for his mother's birthday. It was quite likely that the child of a knight would know some knight cultivation techniques, and even if he didn't, he would at least know some basic martial arts. On the way, Chen Heng had already tested him. Even though Surundo's father was a knight, his strength was not very great. Even though they had only walked for a short while, he was already breathing a bit heavily. From how things seemed, he did not seem very strong. Looking at Surundo's constitution, he did not seem like he had received much night training, and he did not know any profound night breathing techniques. If they fought, Chen Heng had the confidence to quickly subdue him. It was just that Chen Heng looked at the people by Surundo's side and gave up on that idea. Surundo's strength was quite average, but his 2 attendants were not ordinary at all. He most likely would not be able to deal with them all by himself. After thinking about it, Chen Heng decided to not attack them. As they walked, he maintained a respectful disposition and talked about things that had happened in this forest, occasionally causing Surundo to loudly laugh. From how he looked, he seemed like he greatly appreciated Chen Heng. As for the white deer, Chen Heng was able to find one quickly. After living here for 5 years, this forest was like his home. He knew exactly where everything was. In just a few days, Surundo was able to obtain what he wanted. Before leaving, Surundo kept his end of the agreement and tossed a bag of gold coins in front of Chen Heng. However, Chen Heng shook his head and refused. "Why are you refusing?" Surundo could not understand and asked. "Do you feel it's not enough?" "No, sir, you gave me too much." Chen Heng deeply breathed in and said, "Sir Surundo, you are the most noble and dignified person I have met, and to be able to get to know you is my honor. How could I dare to take a reward for my services?" Surundo stared at him with surprise. No matter how thick one's skin was, one would feel embarrassed from that. Normally, He was just the son of a knight, and even though his status was higher than an ordinary person's, he was not that much higher. He had never been praised like this before. What's more, the one praising him like this was not an ordinary person. He was an extremely skilled and powerful hunter. You're exaggerating. His face became red and wondered how to reply, but Chen Heng spoke first. If you don't mind, I'm willing to become your most loyal follower. The blade in your hands. Chen Heng half knelt and said sincerely, such a noble person like you is my model for the rest of my life. Please let me serve you and clear away all of your obstacles. This surrender was stunned for a moment before saying in shock, you want to follow me? In this world, following someone and giving them your loyalty was not just something casually said. Once someone chose to pledge their loyalty to someone, they would not be able to betray them for their entire lives, as they would be shunned by all people. Of course, following someone and pledging loyalty was a rule created by nobles. For a commoner like Chen Heng, ordinarily, he did not even have the right to follow a noble. However, the current state of affairs was different than before. During the chaos of war, any warrior who could draw his sword would be welcomed. Moreover, Surrender was not a proper noble. He was just the son of a knight. As such, Chen Heng suddenly pledging his loyalty was very tempting. He looked at Chen Heng's solid and tall figure and thought back to his valiant fighting style when fighting with beasts, and he could not help but nod. Just like that, Chen Heng became Surrendo's follower. After choosing to follow Surrendo, Chen Heng left his town and headed to Surrendo's father's territory. He did not have any reservations about this. Suolo's mother had long since passed away because of illness, and his father had passed away because of the flu 2 years ago. He was all alone and did not have anything tying him down here. Surrendo's father also welcomed Chen Heng. There was a shortage of soldiers recently, and valiant fighters like Chen Heng were something they could never have enough of. This was especially so after seeing Chen Heng's abilities. Seeing that he was not any inferior to his guards, he was delighted. A knight's territory did not come for free. They needed to nurture guards and followers to protect their territory and heed their call when they went into battle. It was difficult to nurture warriors, and it was naturally better to have as many valiant warriors like Chen Heng as possible. Just like that, Chen Heng joined Surrendo's father's territory. Time gradually passed, and soon, it had been another 5 years. One night, Surrendo called Chen Heng to his room. Suolo, my brother. Compared to 5 years ago, Surrendo still looked young but seemed much more mature. Over the past few years, Chen Heng had served Surrendo's father well, but he had not lost contact with Surrendo. The two of them had maintained a good relationship since the start. Just like today, they would often meet up late at night and chat. However, this time was different than the past times. Within the spacious room, Surrendo sat there by himself and his expression flickered as he said, "Can I trust you?" "Of course, sir." Chen Heng did not hesitate to reply, and he half knelt as he said resolutely, with a single command, "I can do anything for you." Seeing how Chen Heng didn't even hesitate, Surrendo inwardly let out a sigh of relief and paused before saying, "I have something that I need your help with. My father will not be able to last very long." After pausing, he decided to speak. "What?" Chen Heng paused and felt quite surprised. Surrendo's father, Knight Cecily, was a real knight. According to the standards of this world, Knight Cecily had received good training as a knight and had the talent to match awakening life energy. Chen Heng had seen Knight Cecily not too long ago. He had come back from an expedition and seemed incredibly mighty. He did not look like he was going to die at all. Surrendo seemed to be able to tell Chen Heng's confusion and continued, "Using life energy will cause many problems in the body, and it will even cause one's lifespan to be reduced. My father," pausing, he once again sighed and did not continue. Chen Heng understood what Surrendo was trying to say. Based on his investigations, the knights here used something called life energy. Life energy caused knights to be incredibly powerful, but at the same time, it harmed their bodies and could reduce their lifespan. This must have been what happened to Surrendo's father, Knight Cecily. Based on what I know, my father only has 2 years left. Surrendo sighed, and his expression became gloomy as he said, "And after that, Charlie will take over this territory and become the new ruler." Chen Heng immediately understood Surrendo's intentions. As Knight Cecily's son, Surindo was a noble. It was just that he was not the eldest son, nor did he have exceptional talent as a knight. According to the rules of this age, after Knight Sekli died, his eldest son, Charlie, would inherit his title, as well as everything else. As for Surindo, apart from some assets, he would not receive anything else. What was key was that according to what Chen Heng knew, Surindo and his big brother Charlie had a poor relationship. If Charlie took Knight Cecily's title, he would most likely kick Surindo out. It was even possible that Charlie would secretly have Surindo killed. As such, Surindo was most likely quite sad and worried about this. Suolo, my dear brother, what should I do? Surindo sighed as he looked at Chen Heng and asked, what should you do? Do you really need to ask me? Chen Heng fell silent for a moment before looking up and asking, Sir, what do you think about Sir Charlie's character? He's a shameless and despicable person. When talking about Charlie, Surindo's expression darkened as he said, I've always suspected whether or not he is my father's son. Then what do you think Sir Charlie would do to you if he inherited your father's title? Chen Heng took a step forward and continued to ask, will he give you enough money to survive and chase you out of the territory? Or will he let you stay here and give you some menial tasks so that you can barely survive? Or he paused before saying, will he send someone to? Surindo's expression became even darker. He knew that with his big brother's personality, what Chen Heng said was likely to occur. Sir, do you really want to accept such an outcome? At that moment, Chen Heng suddenly half knelt and said earnestly, will you accept such a pitiful end? But Surindo hesitated before saying, in the end, he's my older brother and the successor to the Cecily territory. What can I do? Before he inherits the territory, anything can happen, Chen Heng said firmly. He suddenly looked at Surindo and said, as long as Sir Charlie dies of illness, everything can change. After all, Knight Cecily only has you and Sir Charlie. Die of illness. Surindo paused. At that moment, he no longer looked hesitant and instead looked at Chen Heng firmly as he said, it's just that Charlie is always followed around by Sir Edward. How can I be a match for him? Hearing this and sensing Surindo's attitude, Chen Heng inwardly let out a sigh of relief. He had been worried that Surindo would not dare to do this. However, it seemed that Surindo had also been thinking about this for a long time. Chen Heng said without hesitation, leave it to me. Even if Sir Edward is a knight, he's getting old. His strength cannot compare to what it was in the past. If it's in a one-on-one scenario, I have the confidence to defeat him. Truly? Surindo shot to his feet and stared at Chen Heng, his voice filled with excitement. Of course. Chen Heng nodded with confidence before saying, however, in order to guarantee success, I need a bit of help. Surindo did not hesitate to ask, what do you need? Sharp weapons, firm armor, or lethal poison, a bow, and arrows? No. Chen Heng shook his head as he lowered his head and asked respectfully, I hope I can have a portion of the knight's breathing technique. You want the knight's breathing technique? Surindo paused and hesitated before saying, you require knight talent to be able to use it. It might not be useful to you. It's fine. Chen Heng kept his head lowered and his stance did not change. It's enough if it can make me even a bit stronger. In the battle to come, every bit of power will be incredibly important. His tone was incredibly sincere. The knight's breathing technique was his true goal. In this world, the knight's breathing technique was something that exclusively belonged to nobles. Only noble families with long lineages had such a legacy. The reason why Chen Heng had become Surindo's follower and worked hard to serve his father was for the knight's breathing technique. Now, his opportunity had finally come. Hearing Chen Heng's words, Surindo's face flickered, and he became incredibly hesitant. Standing there, he fell silent for a while. In the end, he thought about the situation that he was in and gritted his teeth as he said, all right, I'll give you the knight's breathing technique. He deeply breathed in and looked at Chen Heng as he said, furthermore, I hereby promise that if I become the ruler of the Cecily territory, I will give you our family's complete knight's breathing technique. Hearing this, Chen Heng looked incredibly grateful as he said, sir. No need to thank me. Surindo walked over to him and helped him up as he said sincerely, after all, you are my closest brother, just like what Sir Edward is to my father. I hope that we will be able to maintain this friendship until the end of our lives. After a moment, Chen Heng's expression became calm as he walked out of Surindo's room. He looked around and after confirming that there was no one, he walked back to his own room. After coming back to his own room, he took a piece of parchment out of his clothes. The parchment looked somewhat old and tattered, and there were many things written with this world's language. Chen Heng looked down, and a look of delight appeared on his face. It should be real, it's just that it's not complete. Over the past years, he had not been doing nothing. While working, he had been using his martial arts knowledge to analyze this world's night's breathing technique. With the knowledge and experience he had gained, this night's breathing technique was most likely the real thing, and there should not be any problem in using it. When he thought about it, it made sense. After all, in the current situation, no matter how stupid Surindo was, he would not try to fool him with a fake breathing technique. Even though only the basic portions were included, it was quite easy to understand. Surindo did not have much talent as a knight, so he had only learned the basic portions. As such, it was natural that he only knew the basic portions of the night's breathing technique. Chen Heng read over the night's breathing technique, and after memorizing it, he began to practice it. Within the room, he moved his hands and feet, using a unique stance to move about, continuously stimulating his body. After warming up, he took something out from a nearby drawer. It was a black ointment that looked like stone and seemed quite special. It gave off a unique smell that would make people frown. This was the supporting medicine that all knights needed to cultivate. Chen Heng had also obtained it from Surindo. In this world, training as a knight was not easy. From the early stages, unless there were other knights using their life energy to support you, as well as various unique medicines, it was very difficult to get started. Chen Heng covered his body with the ointment and an intense burning feeling appeared over his body. It was not very strong at the start, but as time passed, it became intense to the point that he could not help but cry out in pain. Is this feeling similar to one's chi blood burning? Chen Heng frowned and thought to himself. In the body forging technique of the real world, there was the concept of chi blood. Under special circumstances, martial artists could ignite their chi blood, receiving greater battle power. This was the goal of cultivation. Now, Chen Heng felt a similar feeling. He endured the pain and frowned as he began to train. He followed the night's breathing technique and began to do his best to do various actions. As time passed, the burning feeling became weaker and weaker until it turned into a feeling of coolness. As time continued to pass, Chen Heng felt his body becoming weaker and weaker, and his body became filled with weariness. As expected, I don't have the talent to become a knight. Sensing the feeling in his body, Chen Heng sighed. According to what Surindo had told him, if he had talent, then during training, he would become more and more excited and feel a refreshed feeling that made him not want to stop. However, Chen Heng did not feel that. Instead, he only felt weariness. From this, he could tell that this body of his did not have the talent to become a knight. However, this made sense. He did not spend any points on this identity in the simulation, so it was already good that he wasn't missing an arm or a leg. He wanted the talent required to become a knight. Dream on. Before, Chen Heng had just wanted to try things out and did not have much hope. Now that his hope had been destroyed, he was not disappointed and only sighed. Luckily it's still somewhat useful. He sensed his current status and a thought appeared in his mind. He could feel that the night's breathing technique's straining effects on his body was not any inferior to the body forging technique. If I use the night's breathing technique with the body forging technique, it seems that the effects will be even better. Chen Heng thought to himself. Perhaps he would be able to complete his body forging sooner with this breathing technique. I wonder if there will be much of a difference in strength between completion of body forging and knights in this world. Time gradually passed. After that secret discussion between Chen Heng and Surindo, everything went on as usual as if nothing had happened. On the surface, the Cecily territory seemed quite calm. Just like that, another 2 years passed. Rumble. It was thundering outside, while rain fell heavily. Has Sir Cecily's illness still not gotten better? Chen Heng softly asked the tall knight in front of him. No. The tall knight turned around and looked at Chen Heng. Mr. Suolo, even though we've known each other for a long time, I should give you this reminder. The tall knight turned and looked at Chen Heng. Under the dim lighting, his figure was revealed to Chen Heng. He was incredibly tall, and his body was also quite muscular. It was just that he looked quite old. He seemed around 50 years old, and his strength seemed to be deteriorating. If he was an ordinary person, such a person would be preparing for his death already. Even for a knight, he was getting quite old. However, even though he was getting on in years, he still looked incredibly big and well built. He stood there and his large eyes stared at Chen Heng as he said with a serious expression, "As an outsider, it is best for you to not get involved in Sir Cecily's family affairs. Otherwise, you will not have a good outcome." His tone was incredibly cold. It seemed that they had reached a critical moment, so he had to give this warning. After all, even though Chen Heng had been quite obedient and loyal in recent years, in the end, he was one of Surendo's followers. To Edward, who stood on Charlie's side, he had to be on his guard. "I understand." Looking at Edward, Chen Heng deeply breathed in and looked quite sad as he said, "I've already served Sir Cecily for almost 10 years now. Even now, is Sir not willing to trust me?" He looked quite sorrowful, as if he was hurt by Edward's words. "No, I didn't mean that." Looking at Chen Heng, Edward's tone became softer as he said, "I'm just worried that you'll make the wrong decision." Young people are often tempted by various things, causing them to make poor decisions. His expression became gentler as he said, "Mr. Suolo, you are still young and in your strongest years. There's no need to do rash things that might destroy the rest of your life." Hearing this, Chen Heng fell silent. He stood there silently for a while before smiling and saying, "I naturally understand this." Hearing this, Edward smiled, walked to his side, and patted his shoulder before leaving. He turned and prepared to walk away. From how it seemed, it looked like he was going to go and prepare some things. Whoosh! A light breeze blew past and rippled out. The sound of a sword tearing through the air suddenly sounded out. Edward was startled and instinctively dodged to the side. Bang! A clear sound rang out, following which blood sprayed out. In just a moment, his arm had been cut off by the long sword. Within a short period of time, he would not be able to fight. Looking at Chen Heng, Edward's heart shook as a look of fury appeared on his face. "Apologies." Chen Heng's expression was calm as he held the sword. The sword was something that Surindo had given him, and he had pasted a special poison on it. Even if it was a bear, anyone would quickly lose the ability to fight if touched by the poison. Chen Heng had prepared a lot for this day. "For Lord Surindo, please die." His expression was calm as he rushed forwards and slashed down. Bang! A massive wave of energy came from his body. Edward did not hesitate and looked at Chen Heng as he drew his sword and slashed out. As their swords clashed, the two of them simultaneously retreated before leaping forwards again. The sound of metal clashing continuously sounded out. "Your strength." Sensing the energy coming from Chen Heng's body, Edward became even angrier, and he had a bad feeling. He was not an ordinary person, he was a knight who had both talent and good training. For him, even though he was getting on in years and was injured, he was not someone who an ordinary person should be able to fight. Such monstrous power. Feeling the terrifying power behind Edward's sword, Chen Heng was also somewhat surprised. After 2 years, he had completed the body forging technique. With this kind of strength, even in those martial arts schools, he would be one of the strongest, and there would be few who could compare to him. However, in this situation, he was still somewhat at a disadvantage. Edward was simply too terrifying. With that incredible power, a casual attack would be able to cut down a large tree, and this was while he was injured. Chen Heng could not imagine just how monstrous Edward had been when he had been in his prime and uninjured. However, there were no ifs in reality. Within the large hall, intense clashing sounds rang out, accompanied by roars. Sword and sword continuously slammed together before gradually slowing down. Edward's strength was finally declining. No matter how reluctant he was to give in, he was someone in his 50s and was far from his peak. In terms of physical prowess, he could not compare to Chen Heng. Moreover, he had been injured, and the poison was gradually taking effect. After a long deadlock, the only thing waiting for Edward was defeat and death. A sword light flashed out, following which a person's head fell to the ground. In the hall, Chen Heng half knelt on the ground. His body was covered with sweat and wounds. Facing a knight like Edward, even though Chen Heng was quite strong, he was unable to come out unscathed. His clothes were blooded, and blood flowed down his clothes. However, he had survived. "Mr. Suolo," a voice sounded out from outside. Chen Heng turned and saw a lightly armored guard standing there, looking at him in terror. "Sir Surrendo invites you over," he said as he continued to stare at Chen Heng with fear. "Lead the way." Chen Heng raised his head, his expression cold as he spoke lightly. This night was destined to be a night of slaughter. After Knight Cecily had died, the entire Cecily territory had around 50 elite guards. Of them, Knight Edward was the strongest. Just Chen Heng alone could compare to the rest. After Edward had been killed by Chen Heng, no remaining problems existed. In just a single night, Chen Heng personally led Surendo's people and killed dozens of people, quelling all resistance. Surendo's older brother, Sir Charlie, had been forced into desperate straits, and in the end, he was personally hung by Surrendo. Following this, the events of the night concluded. "Suolo, my brother." Early the next morning, the sun shined on the ground. Surrendo looked at Chen Heng and looked extremely excited. "The people who I sent to Salo have replied. The Marquis of Salo has agreed for me to become the new ruler of the Cecily territory." He patted Chen Heng's shoulder and seemed incredibly happy. Of course, he had reason to be so happy. Knight Cecily only had 2 children, and after Charlie had died, Surrendo was the only successor to the territory. Now, his succession had been acknowledged. After some time, he would officially be the new ruler of the Cecily territory. "I am very happy for you, my liege." Chen Heng half knelt, looking incredibly sincere. Surrendo also gave a slight smile. "Suolo, my brother." He poured a cup of wine and gave it to Chen Heng. "A toast to our eternal friendship," he said as he looked at Chen Heng and laughed. After hearing these words, Chen Heng did not move for a while before silently getting up. He stared at Surrendo and lightly sighed as he asked, "But why?" "What?" Surrendo was stunned, as if he did not understand. However, Chen Heng did not want to waste any words. Looking at Surrendo, he casually tossed his cup, spilling the wine on the ground. After the wine landed on the ground, it seemed normal but soon gave off a strange fragrance. "You didn't even think to change the poison." Chen Heng lightly sighed and said, "Lord Surrendo, you're a bit too careless." You. Surrendo stumbled backwards, and his expression became incredibly gloomy as if he had seen a ghost. Seeing him like this, Chen Heng shook his head. As expected, hoping that others would follow his script was too extravagant. Chen Heng had thought that after Knight Cecily had died and he killed Edward, Surrendo would not be so stupid as to try anything against him. After all, right now, within the entire Cecily territory, the only one who could rival a knight was him. Without Chen Heng, how could he keep order in his territory and protect his territory? It was a pity that Surrendo did not seem to think of this, and in the end, he was unwilling to give out his family's legacy. "If you had just given the complete knight's breathing technique to me, I would have been like Edward and obediently served your family. Wouldn't that have been good?" Chen Heng lightly sighed and silently drew the sword at his waist. "Why did you have to force me to this?" He spoke lightly, but his voice echoed in the hall. Surrendo's expression immediately became one of terror. Thump! A clear sound rang out. There was not much of a struggle, and Chen Heng did not use much effort to take down Surrendo as a head flew away. After killing Surrendo, Chen Heng did not hesitate to charge out with his sword. With his abilities, no one in the Cecily territory was a match for him. Moreover, these soldiers had lost their ruler and would not risk their lives to fight with Chen Heng. Soon, Chen Heng charged out from this region and left. After walking out of the Cecily territory, Chen Heng traveled away from it and headed to other regions. Killing Surrendo did not bring him much trouble. After all, this was an age of war and chaos, and no region was in peace. There was fighting everywhere. Even in Salo, there were many true nobles who had died, so the death of a Minite was not much of a deal. After Chen Heng left the Cecily territory, he became a mercenary. He called himself the Wandering Knight and assembled a small mercenary group that fought for various rulers. Within the various battles, he was able to refine and sharpen his skills. Just like that, he went through many years in the chaotic age until he died unexpectedly in a battle. A murky, dark feeling assaulted him, followed by an intense dizziness. When Chen Heng once again opened his eyes, he found that he was in a familiar yet unfamiliar place. This was his bedroom from before, and everything around him was exactly the same. He let out a sigh of relief and started to go over his experience. In this simulation, he had gone through an unimaginable life. He had started as an ordinary hunter and continuously moved forward to become an extremely experienced warrior. This was not something that ordinary people would experience. Sitting on his bed, Chen Heng thought for a long time before finally coming to his senses and looking ahead of him. In front of his eyes, lines of words appeared. The simulation has concluded. Calculating final score. As the words appeared, all of the things that Chen Heng had experienced flashed before his eyes. You killed many people as well as saved many people. You changed the course of many people's lives on a small scale and made eternal changes to that region. You were a proficient warrior and were famous in that small region. Overall evaluation, average. Calculation concluded. Your final points score, 103 points. Looking at the words in front of him, Chen Heng felt quite surprised, muttering, "And that much?" He could not help but feel surprised. Before this, he had thought that he had to slowly accumulate points over time. From this, it seemed that he could obtain points from the simulation. As long as he performed well enough, he would be able to obtain more points. This time, his entry fee had only been 20 points. Just like that, he had gained many times more points and recovered his costs. This was definitely a good piece of news. However, things were not yet over. More words began to appear. You can choose to spend points to retrieve a portion of the things you had in the simulation. This includes, but is not limited to, items, talents, bloodlines, skills. After these words appeared, everything disappeared and a large wheel appeared before him. Chen Heng's eyes immediately lit up. There's something like this as well? He could not help but feel excited and interested. He had worked hard and struggled in the simulation for many years, and he had gained many abilities. If he wanted to pick up all of these skills and abilities again, it would take a long time. However, using this method would make things much easier. He looked at the wheel in front of him as a number appeared. Chen Heng nodded. So it's the same price as the entrance fee? He did not hesitate and decided to spend 20 points. The wheel began to spin faster and faster before gradually slowing down. When the pointer on the wheel stopped, the contents of the segment that it had stopped in was revealed. You have obtained Hunter Suolo's archery skills. The faint words appeared before his eyes. Immediately, his memories of Suolo's archery skills became clearer and clearer until they became incredibly realistic. Chen Heng opened his eyes and felt somewhat confused before sensing his body. He looked at his arms. Before, his arms had been quite white and slim, and his palms did not have any marks. However, without realizing it, his hands now had many calluses, covering his hands. They now looked like the hands of someone who had trained regularly for a long time. This made Chen Heng come to a realization. So it's like that. He understood the truth behind this prize wheel. Before, he had trained in the simulation for a long time, reaching a high level. He could even fight with that world's knights. After returning to his original body, he was unable to bring back anything except his experiences. However, in the end, experience was only experience. If he wanted to turn it into something real, it would take time. This was the point of the prize wheel. Through the prize wheel, he could directly regain what he had gained in the simulation. This was what had just happened. Chen Heng stretched out his hands testingly, and he could feel that he had grown much stronger. This was most likely the effect of his prize. Not only had he gained the memories of the skills, but his body had also adjusted. This saved a lot of the time he would have had to spend on training, and he directly regained the standard he had in the simulation. However, archery skills were not that useful to Chen Heng. It was good in the simulation, but in the real world, how could he have the opportunity to use a bow? This skill was not very significant to him. As such, Chen Heng raised his head and continued to look at the wheel. Following this, he could not help but frown. The number on the prize wheel had changed from 20 to 40. It had effectively doubled. As I do more draws, the number of points it costs will also increase. Chen Heng nodded and understood the rules of this prize wheel. He lowered his head and thought before deciding to use the prize wheel again. The wheel began to spin again. However, compared to the first time, the prize wheel spun much slower this time. In the end, as Chen Heng watched on, the pointer gradually slowed down and stopped at a certain place. "You have obtained Hunter Suolo's body forging technique." The faint words appeared before his eyes. Looking at these words, Chen Heng felt quite startled before looking delighted. A light shined down and covered Chen Heng's body. Following this, changes began to happen. Chen Heng felt a wave of energy springing forth in his body as if his body was being reshaped, giving it terrifying strength. Of course, this was just an illusory feeling and not actually real. However, feeling this, Chen Heng could not help but give a slight smile. In the real world, his cultivation was quite ordinary. Even though he had a foundation, he was still quite far from completing body forging. Even though his experiences in the simulation could greatly shorten this time, based on Chen Heng's estimations, with his foundation, it would take him at least a few months to reach completion. Completing body forging in just a few months was already an extremely shocking speed, and anyone would be shocked upon hearing this. However, now that he could reach that point faster, it was naturally better. Sensing his regained strength, Chen Heng laughed. The feeling was quite special. After being spun twice, the prize wheel once again went through changes. The cost increased from 40 to 80 points. From how things seemed, the prize wheel did not increase by 20 points each time and instead doubled each time. Based on how many points Chen Heng had left, he could not afford the next roll. Chen Heng looked up at his remaining points. Current points, 43. He had gained 103 points from the simulation and had used 60 points on the 2 skills. Chen Heng nodded. This was enough for 2 entrance fees. Thinking of the gains from the previous simulation, he could not help but feel excited and chose to go into another simulation. "Please choose your identity." The familiar interface once again appeared. Just like last time, Chen Heng made the same selections. However, this time, nothing happened. "The simulation has concluded." A line of words appeared before his eyes. Chen Heng could not help but feel confused. What's going on? Looking at those words, he could not help but frown. The points had been deducted, and there had not been anything wrong with his selections. But why had the simulation concluded before he had gone in? He felt quite confused. So he looked at the interface. It was as if the interface could sense his confusion, and scenes appeared before him. It was the life of a person. It was in an ordinary mountain village. A child was born and grew up there. For the next few years, the child was like any other child, continuously growing. However, when the child was 7 years old, a group of bandits appeared and massacred the village. During the massacre, the child's parents had been killed, and even though he had been lucky to survive, he lost the protection of the village and starved to death. The scenes ended there. Chen Heng felt quite speechless. So it was like that. He understood why the simulation had failed. Before the simulation had begun, he could choose the age that he started the simulation, but he had to pay for it. Before, Chen Heng had wondered what the point of this option was. Now, he understood that it was to prevent anything unexpected from occurring. There were countless unexpected variables in a person's life. From when a child was born to then growing to 20 years old, too much could happen. There could be natural calamities or man-made disasters. Just a fire could cause a life to be lost. Once something like this happened, if Chen Heng's identity in the simulation perished, the simulation would naturally fail. That means my luck before was pretty good. Sitting on his bed, Chen Heng thought back to his first simulation and felt quite speechless. After staying in that world for so many years, he clearly knew how dangerous that world was. Whether one was a noble or commoner, everyone was in a precarious state and could lose their lives at any moment. Under such circumstances, if he wanted his identity in the simulation to safely survive to 20 years old, it was indeed somewhat difficult. After understanding this, Chen Heng fell into his thoughts for a while. He now knew much more about the simulation. Before, he had thought he would be able to start the simulation as long as he paid the entrance fee. It seemed that things were not as he had thought. After coming to this realization, he could not help but feel a bit speechless. Following this, he lowered his head and looked at his current points. Current points, 23. 23 points was basically enough for just one entrance fee. If the simulation failed again, Chen Heng would not be able to even enter a simulation again. Thinking to the He hesitated and chose to give up for now. The first simulation had just concluded and there were still many things that he was not used to yet. He needed some time to train and solidify his gains from the simulation. Before he did so, he would not be in a hurry to go into the next simulation. Rather than beginning a new simulation now, it was better to wait a while and gather more points. He thought to himself, for this period of time, I'll have to be careful. Sitting on the bed, he looked at the calluses on his hands. The prize wheel had brought great changes to him, but externally, there were not many differences. For those who were familiar with him, they might notice the slight differences and feel that something was off. Even though this would not be a big problem, Chen Heng still felt that it was better to hide it. After deciding this, he walked out from his room. Chen Jing was no longer in the living room, and Chen Heng had no idea where she had gone. Only Wang Li was left, busily hurrying around. After letting Wang Li know, Chen Heng walked out of the house and left the neighborhood. He found a drugstore and bought some ointments before going back. I should be able to get rid of them after using the ointments a few times, Chen Heng thought to himself as he looked at his calluses. That night, after eating dinner, Chen Heng once again went out. This time, he did not go to those busy streets to play like usual. Instead, he went to a park by himself. This was a place that Chen Heng had often visited in the past. Because it was not regularly maintained, not many people came here. Ordinarily, only some elderly people would come here to passionately do radio gymnastics. After walking here, Chen Heng came to a quiet area that he was familiar with. It was quiet all around, seeming incredibly tranquil. This was a place he had frequented, whether in his past life or in this life. After walking here, he did not hesitate to take out a wooden sword from his bag. The wooden sword belonged to Chen Jing. Martial arts flourished in this world, and there were all kinds of martial arts. As such, there were many sword techniques as well. Chen Jing had joined such a class when she was young. Chen Heng did not know if she had learned anything, but they had given out many wooden swords like this. It would be good to use it for practice. Chen Heng lightly raised his hand and lifted up the wooden sword. His expression was concentrated as he silently looked ahead of him before vigorously swinging it. Whoosh! Waves of sword wind swept forwards, rippling out. Chen Heng held the sword, swinging it one strike at a time as he familiarized himself with his body. In the simulation, he had killed for dozens of years and developed exquisite sword skills. After returning to the real world, even though he still had some of his memories, he needed to have his real body get used to them too. This was Chen Heng's current training goal. In order to not make too big of a disturbance, his movements were very slow. Each strike could be clearly seen, and he looked as if he was doing a drill. People would occasionally pass by, and looking at Chen Heng's movements, they would not feel that there was anything special about him, only that he was a bit strange. Tap tap tap. Light footsteps sounded out. Two men walked towards the park. They wore ordinary clothes and looked the same as anyone else. However, the aura and demeanor they gave off made them seem different. It was easy to tell that they were true martial artists. However, this was not strange. In this world, true martial artists were not rare and such people could often be seen. Occasionally, seeing one or two was not a strange matter. Is it here? Looking at this peaceful park, the older man, who looked middle-aged, frowned and said, "It doesn't feel like there's anything special." The other person shook his head and said, "I'm not sure." From the report, before that demonic chi disappeared, it appeared around here. The middle-aged man said, "Probably not here. There doesn't seem to be much of a reaction here." Most likely not then. As they talked, they attentively looked around. After a while, they walked deeper into the park. They heard sounds from ahead and saw Chen Heng diligently training. Not bad at all. Looking at Chen Heng's sword training from afar, they nodded and said, "Even though he's still young, his sword techniques are not like those people who just show off. His techniques are very refined. He's most likely a student from nearby." The other person nodded as a look of appreciation appeared on his face. To be still working so hard at a time like this, he's quite good. This is a good sprout. I wonder what his body forging progress is like. It should be decent as well. The middle-aged man nodded. Look at his movements. They're sharp and agile. His body forging progress should not be lacking at all. I wonder which school he's from. They observed Chen Heng for a while before leaving and checking other areas of the park. Over this process, they did not disturb the young man training with his sword and silently searched. Nothing here either. Let's go to a few other places to check. It'll be troublesome if we can't find it. They discussed in low tones before walking out of this park. Chen Heng did not know about anything that had just happened. Standing in the corner, he continued to train for a while before stopping and resting. Following this, he looked at the color of the sky, and after thinking for a moment, he left this area. In the next few days, time passed peacefully. During the day, Chen Heng would go to class like normally, and at night, he would go to the park where no one else was around and train. Studies for high schoolers were quite intense, and this was the case both in Chen Heng's previous world and this world. When Chen Heng finished his classes, it was already quite late. There were not many people out at such a time, so he could train in peace. After training so much, he had regained a lot of his strength and skills from the simulation. Current points, 45. Chen Heng looked in front of him. Without noticing it, 20 or so days had passed already. Over the past 20 or so days, his points had increased 1 point per day, slowly but surely increasing. Now, he had 45 points. At the same time, Chen Heng had made much progress through his training. He decided that he would go into the simulation again soon and continue his journey. Ring ring ring. A bell sounded from outside, and the students all came back to the classroom. After a while a tall, middle-aged man walked in. He was extremely tall and looked incredibly well built and sturdy. This person was called Liu Lin, and he was Chen Heng's body forging teacher. In his previous life, he was not a body forging teacher but the physical education teacher. Ahem. Liu Lin walked to the lectern, coughed a few times as his expression became serious, and said, "Well, your maths teacher is sick today, so I will be substituting." Hearing this, the other students' expressions did not change. It seemed that they were used to this. Only Chen Heng's mouth twitched, having a bad feeling. In this world, the sickly Big Lin was now the one substituting in for other sick teachers. Chen Heng wondered if the Liu Lin of the other world would cry with tears of joy upon seeing a scene like this. Of course, there's something else. Seeing that the students did not react much, Liu Lin nodded in satisfaction before clapping his hands. Following this, a thin figure silently walked into the classroom. It was a young girl who looked quite frail. She was somewhat pretty and wore very rustic-looking glasses, and she seemed quite introverted. "This is Liu Yi. She just completed the transfer process yesterday and will be joining our class today." Looking at the students below, Liu Lin said, "Let's welcome her." After he finished speaking, an intense wave of applause sounded out. In Chen Heng's class, the boys greatly outnumbered the girls, and it was rare to see female classmates. Now that a new female classmate had joined, they all greatly welcomed her. While everyone clapped, only Chen Heng felt a bit surprised. He looked at Liu Yi standing beside the lectern and felt somewhat confused. In his previous life, he did not remember a transfer student joining at a time like this. Was this world just different, or was this a change that had happened because of him? He felt quite confused, and he wondered what the reason was. However, he did not pay too much attention to this. Maybe she's a relative of Mr. Liu, which is why he had her transfer in. Liu Lin gave Liu Yi a seat in the corner, and she sat down there. From the start of the class to the end, she remained completely silent. Following this, they went through the rest of their classes. Only when the end of school bell rang did classes finish. I would like to say, hearing the bell, Liu Lin did not immediately leave. He stood at the lectern and said, "There is only half a year until your university entrance exams. And this weekend is another physical examination. Do you know what this means?" Liu Lin's expression was serious as he said, "While there's still time, students who haven't met the requirements for basic body forging should use this opportunity to catch up. Otherwise, if you miss out on this university entrance exam, do you want to repeat a year next year?" he said seriously. Hearing these words, Chen Heng fell into his thoughts. In the previous world, the university entrance exams were already harsh enough. Countless students worked incredibly hard for many years just to get good results on the university entrance exams. However, In this world, the university entrance exams were even harsher. In his previous world, one only had to do well on the culture subjects. They would not be put at a disadvantage because of their innate physical condition. Even a person with disabilities who was missing a few limbs could enter a top university if he did well enough. But in this world, the situation was different. Martial arts had an extremely high position in this world, and in fact, sometimes it was valued higher than the university entrance exams. In this world, those whose body forging was below par were unable to get into a good university. No matter how good one's scores in the culture subjects were, as long as one's score in body forging and one's chi blood were not strong enough, one could only go to a third-rate university. This had become an insurmountable obstacle for many people. Hearing Liu Lin's words, many people's faces became pale, and their expressions became serious. Chen Heng did not feel much pressure though. His grades had already been quite good, and now that he had gained much from the simulation, he had already completed body forging. Body forging completion was no small deal. Putting aside the Lin City #1 high school, even in the entire Lin City, there were not many people at his age who had reached such a level. With his current status, as long as he did not do too poorly in his culture subjects, he would be able to easily get into the best universities. The problem of deciding whether to go to Tsinghua University or Peking University was something that he could only imagine in his past life. However, in his current life, he would really have to think about it. Of course, this world did not actually have Tsinghua University or Peking University. There were other top-ranked universities. After class ended, Chen Heng got up, took his bag, and left. What to do? On the way, a student sighed and said, "It's nearly time for another physical examination. If I don't pass, what should I do?" Chen Heng lightly smiled and said softly, "There's still time. Just do your best to do supplementary work. After all, there's still half a year left. Don't feel too pressured." The student sighed, not knowing what to say. This student was called Liango, and he was Chen Heng's neighbor as well as his good friend of many years. Because they lived close by, they often hung out together and went home together. Oh, by the way, on the way home, Liango's expression became a bit hesitant, but looking at Chen Heng, he decided to say it. "I think I saw your big sister last night." "Your big sister? My big sister?" Chen Heng's expression did not change as he asked, "What about her?" "I saw her and a guy pulling at each other aggressively," Liango said hesitantly. "They seemed to be having a fight." "Was it bad?" Chen Heng frowned. Liango sighed and silently nodded. "I'll ask her when I get back." Chen Heng also sighed, not knowing what to say. From when they had been young, his big sister's reputation was not very good. The reason for this had to do with her personality. From when she was young, she had been involved with simply too many boys. He did not know which one Liango was referring to. However, in actuality, Chen Heng and Chen Jing's relationship was actually quite good. From when they had been young, Chen Jing's relationship with other family members had been quite rigid. Except with Chen Heng, they were somewhat close. If possible, Chen Heng did not want to see anything bad happen to Chen Jing. However, when he returned home, he did not see Chen Jing. She's probably fooling around outside again." Wang Li harumphed as she cooked. "She didn't come back since the night before. I have no idea where she is. She hasn't even sent a message or called." Hearing this, Chen Heng frowned. He let Wang Li know before preparing to leave. Wang Li suddenly said, "Be careful and try not to go out at night. I heard there have been man-eating monsters appearing. It sounds quite terrifying." As she spoke, she looked quite fearful and reminded Chen Heng not to stay out too late. Chen Heng silently nodded before returning to his room. After returning to his room, he tried to contact Chen Jing, but he could not reach her. Even after calling and texting, there was no reply. This was not very normal. Chen Heng and Chen Jing's relationship was quite good, so even if she ignored other people, she would not ignore Chen Heng. Sitting on his bed, Chen Heng frowned and did not know what to say. He stayed in his room for a while before deeply breathing in and going out. After leaving the house, a cold wind blew, bringing with it the faint scent of grass. It was now dusk, and the sun was setting, making the lighting a bit dim. There were not many people around, and those on the streets all seemed to be in a rush. A cold gust of air swept about, causing people to frown. In this weather, Chen Heng began to walk about by himself. He started to search for Chen Jing in places that he knew her to frequent. After going through 2 lives, he was quite familiar with where Chen Jing liked to go. He went through place after place, but he still could not find her. By now, it was already dark and a thin figure appeared in front of him, standing on the street with no one else around and looking at the figure in front of him. Chen Heng instinctively frowned. There was a girl standing there. She looked around the same age as Chen Heng and seemed like a high school student. She was quite thin and looked as if the wind could blow her over. This person was one of Chen Heng's classmates. The girl who had just transferred to his class, Liu Yi. Why is she here? Chen Heng wondered. It was late at night and she was out by herself. This was not good, especially for a girl. He felt quite confused. But soon he was startled. Liu Yi suddenly disappeared from where she had been standing and reappeared elsewhere. So fast. Chen Heng was startled and felt that something was off. This speed was definitely not something that an ordinary girl could have. Liu Yi's body forging absolutely was not weak. She was completely different from her weak external appearance. Looking at Liu Yi quickly moving away, Chen Heng hesitated before also silently following behind her. The aura of an evil spirit. Walking on the path and sensing the familiar aura, Liu Yi lightly sighed, thinking back to her experiences. After leaving her family and coming to this remote city, she had wanted to live as an ordinary person and forget about those sorrowful things. She had not expected this small city to not be very peaceful either. Perhaps that well-hidden evil spirit's aura could trick others, but it could not trick a professional like her. Sensing the evil spirit's aura, she hesitated before choosing to advance. If she reported everything she knew to the Demon Resistance Department, that would be the safest way to do things. However, if she did that, things would be delayed. She could sense that the evil spirit was on the move, and perhaps many people would be harmed tonight. She followed her senses and came beneath an overhead walkway. Following this, she saw 2 figures. There was a man and a woman who were pushing each other and arguing. They seemed like they were a couple. It was quite ordinary for a couple to be arguing, but there was something strange about this. Liu Yi raised her head and looked ahead. The man and woman looked quite young. The man looked around 25 or 26, while the woman looked like she was in her early 20s. Her gaze was fixed on the man. She saw a dark grey aura around the man's body, which was becoming more and more intense as he argued with the woman. Chen Jing slapped the man's hand away and said with a cold expression, "It's over between us. What do you want with me?" "Jing Jing, give me another chance. I know I was wrong. I won't do it again." The man looked incredibly desperate, and he grabbed onto one of Chen Jing's hands as he said, "Didn't you want me to find a good martial arts teacher for your little teacher? My uncle is a pretty good martial arts teacher and is already a nationally registered martial artist. If you come back to me, I'll ask him to train your little brother. Please, I can't lose you," he said as he grabbed Chen Jing's hand, seeming incredibly agitated. Looking at the man and listening to his words, Chen Jing hesitated before coldly laughing. "Sounds nice. But you said that in the past. When did you ever fulfill your promise?" "We're done." She swatted his hand away before striding away. The man stood there as he stared at Chen Jing's back. His expression was incredibly pained, and he could only helplessly stretch out his hand as if he wanted to find something. Why? There was some despair in his gaze. "Why did you leave me?" Traces of a grey aura continuously appeared and flowed out of his head, however, they could not be seen by the eyes of ordinary people. As the grey aura continuously gathered, his expression became savage, as if he had completely changed. "This is bad." Looking at this, Liu Yi's heart thumped as a bad feeling rose up. His heart had been bedeviled. It seemed that this man had long since been infected by the evil spirit's aura. Now that his emotions were going out of control, he was going to be completely infected by the evil spirit's aura and turn into a demon. Once he turned into a demon, no one would be able to stop him, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Her heart leapt, and she did not worry about anything as she prepared to leap out. Whoosh! A light breeze blew past, making people's hearts feel a chill. Sensing the movement from behind her, Chen Jing instinctively turned and saw a big, black hand grab towards her. In the next moment, she lost consciousness. The man on the overhead walkway disappeared and was replaced by a massive, well-built monster. He was incredibly tall, at least 3 meters tall, and his black muscles bulged, seeming incredibly terrifying. It was not a person. He was a monster. "I want to be with you forever." Standing on the overhead walkway, he lifted Chen Jing up with a single hand, his expression incredibly savage. His massive mouth slowly opened, seeming like he was going to devour Chen Jing. Bang! Faint ripples spread out as a sword image slashed past, cutting off the monster's arm in an instant. A white arm stretched out and instantly destroyed any obstructions before taking Chen Jing into its embrace. An old wooden sword descended and pointed forwards. In the corner, Liu Yi's expression was one of confusion. She was completely stunned. Just then, she had been preparing to act, wanting to save the girl, but someone had acted before her, and she was not unfamiliar with that person. Ahead, there was a young man standing by himself. His facial features were elegant and handsome, but his figure was a bit thin. However, he still had a tall and straight figure. He held Chen Jing with one hand and pointed the wooden sword forwards with the other. His expression was calm and his gaze was sharp. He gave off killing intent as he looked at the massive monster. He was just a young man, and yet that sharp killing intent and shocking spirit could make people feel a chill in their hearts. "This is my classmate." Looking at Chen Heng standing there with Chen Jing, Liu Yi was stunned. "What's going on?" Looking at Chen Heng standing on the overhead walkway, Liu Yi was truly stunned. Even though it was the first day of her transfer, she was quite special and had an extraordinary memory, so she clearly remembered Chen Heng. He was only a high school student. But just then, she thought back to what had just happened. She had just been about to act, but Chen Heng had done so before her. He was so fast that she could not even react. This was not a level that an ordinary high schooler would be able to reach. Perhaps only some martial artists acknowledged by the government could reach such a level. There was such a genius in the small Lin city. She could not help but feel astounded, and her expression changed. Even though the young man's strength was quite good and he could be called a genius, with this strength, it was not enough to face a demon. Even though this was a newly transformed demon, that was still the case. At least he can buy some time. She quickly took out her phone and dialed the government department's number. This was the response that an ordinary citizen should have, after seeing a demon. The right thing to do was to call the government's demon resistance department. She had been too much in a rush just then, so she had not done so. Now that Chen Heng had appeared, she had time to notify the demon resistance department. "Please come quickly." Her heart tightened as she looked at the massive demon, feeling quite panicked. "What is this?" Holding Chen Jing and pointing his sword at the monster, Chen Heng frowned. Whether it was in his previous world or in this world, he had never seen or heard of a monster like this before. Just a few moments before, he had seen that this monster was a normal person, but in the blink of an eye, that person became like this. Not only did his strength become much greater, but his appearance had also completely changed. It seemed that this world was quite mysterious. Roar! As the monster roared, its remaining left arm stretched out and grabbed towards Chen Heng. A wild wind exploded out and only a blur could be seen as it rushed towards Chen Heng. Just this terrifying speed was something that ordinary people could not compare to. If Chen Heng was hit, the impact would be like getting hit by a car. Chen Heng's expression did not change. His body slightly bent as he slowly lifted his right hand, holding the sword up. Whoosh! The old wooden sword once again stabbed out from a strange posture, stabbing towards a certain spot in the air. A strange scene eventuated. As Chen Heng stabbed out, the monster appeared in front of him and was pierced by the sword. Roar! A low roar once again sounded out, accompanied by howls of pain. The black claw grabbed at him with great force. If it hit a person's body, it would be able to tear one's body apart. At the key moment, Chen Heng's expression was calm as he walked forwards step by step. Not only did he not retreat, but he instead continuously came closer to the monster. A loud sound rang out as the monster's chest was pierced and black and red blood flowed out. Following this, Chen Heng's body spun and quickly came behind the monster. He raised his arm high up and slashed down. A bloody gash appeared on the monster's left arm as blood spurted out. The sound of the wind could be heard as an afterimage was left behind. Chen Heng's body disappeared before slamming into the monster. Boom! Even though Chen Heng looked much weaker, it was the monster who was sent flying away 6 or 7 meters, and its entire body seemed to be bleeding. Of course, Chen Heng was not completely fine either. Even though he had sent the monster flying, his chi blood roiled, and he almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. However, he did not care about this. He continued to advance, and even though his expression was calm, his eyes contained killing intent, looking determined to kill this monster. After killing in the simulation for dozens of years, Chen Heng had developed great skills in killing, and most of his attacks were killing blows. He did not hold back at all. If it wasn't for the fact that the monster had a strong life force and its physiology was different, it most likely would have already been killed by Chen Heng. Even though its overall strength was above that of Chen Heng's, it was unable to deal with Chen Heng. Looking at this scene from the corner, Liu Yi was completely dumbfounded. She dumbly stood there, watching Chen Heng fight. Just who is he? She could not help but wonder. In that short amount of time, Chen Heng had made her feel more shock than she had felt in an entire year. This young man's strength showed that he was no ordinary martial artist. From just his strength and speed, it might mean that he had reached completion in body forging and could compare to top-tier martial artists. However, that was not enough to make her feel so shocked. What was truly shocking was his battle power. That chilling killing intent and unhesitating spirit was what made her feel startled. Back when she had been with her family, she had seen many young geniuses. Some were even more exceptional than Chen Heng, and she had seen experienced martial artists too. However, she had never seen someone so proficient and terrifying at fighting. He looked like he had just completed body forging, but Liu Yi was sure that ordinary people who had completed body forging would not be able to last a few moves against him. They were not at the same level at all. Even though that demon had only just transformed, it was not something that someone who had completed body forging should be able to deal with. It required at least 3 people who had completed body forging to attack it together in order to be able to take it down. However, just Chen Heng by himself was able to completely suppress it. This recently awakened demon was not a match for Chen Heng at all. He did not need the demon resistance department's people, nor did he need her to help. Just he alone was enough to suppress the demon and take it down. If others heard about this, practically no one would believe it. Bang! Another loud sound rang out. A gust of wind blew past, and the massive body powerlessly fell backwards, heavily slamming into a wall and leaving some blood there. The wooden sword ferociously stabbed out, bringing with it terrifying power as it pierced through the monster's body and nailed it to the wall. As the monster lay against the wall, its muscles twitched, and it looked like it still had some life in it. However, it did not have much strength left and could only powerlessly fall. The young man's figure walked out and stood there,